In the quaint town of Willowbrook, life seemed almost enchanted. Nestled between lush green hills and a sparkling river, the town was adorned with colorful cottages, blooming gardens, and cheerful residents. Among them lived a bright and inquisitive girl named Sophie, known far and wide for her insatiable curiosity and vivid imagination. Sophie had a wild mane of curly brown hair and a smile that could light up even the darkest days. She spent her afternoons exploring the sprawling meadows that bordered her grandfather Harold's house, collecting wildflowers, chasing butterflies, and dreaming up fantastical adventures in her mind. But in the ensuing chaos, the figures swarmed, closing in around them. The adrenaline coursed through her, igniting a flicker of bravery in her heart. "You don't have to fear them," she shouted, strong and full of an energy she didn't know she possessed. "We're here together." Sophie's voice rang out, strong and defiant, cutting through the noise. From an early age, Sophie was nothing short of a dreamer. She often imagined herself as a brave knight battling mythical beasts or as a wise queen ruling over her kingdom with compassion. But amidst her whimsical fantasies there lay a shadow, one that darkened her heart and clouded her thoughts. Harold, who had been Sophie's primary guardian since her mother passed away when she was just a toddler, often filled her mind with tales of woe and betrayal, primarily concerning her father, Thomas. Harold painted Thomas as a reckless man who had abandoned their family out of selfishness, leaving Sophie's mother to fend for herself in a world of heartache. Although Sophie had never met her father, Harold's grim narratives left a heavy mark on her spirit, causing a storm of confusion and resentment to brew within her. Despite the warmth of her grandfather's affection, Sophie felt a growing void in her heart. The idealized imagery she had constructed of a loving father lingered unfulfilled, and the more she learned about her father's supposed faults, the more confused she became about her identity. She longed for answers, to bridge the gap between the affection Harold offered and the seemingly damning picture he painted of Thomas. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months as the weight of those unanswered questions pressed down heavily on Sophie. Year after year, she had grown up living within the walls of Harold's house, surrounded by his unsolicited judgments of her father. It felt as if a thick fog had enveloped her heart, clouding her vision of who she truly was. One rain-soaked afternoon, Sophie rummaged through Harold's old desk in search of forgotten treasures and abandoned relics, hoping to find something that spoke to her adventurous heart. It was then that she stumbled upon a hidden drawer. Curiosity piqued, she carefully pulled it open. Inside lay stacks of yellowed letters, fragile as if mere time could turn them to dust. The moment she picked one up, it became painfully clear. These letters were from Thomas, her father. Sophie's heart raced as she opened the first letter, and her eyes darted over the inked words filled with longing, regret, and love. He spoke of the choices he had made and how deeply he longed to know her. A tear fell from her eye as she read, "If you're reading this, I hope I haven't lost you completely." Each letter opened a floodgate of emotion, a cascade of love that had been hidden from her all these years. It became unbearable for her to digest the thought that her grandfather had chosen to withhold this part of her life, a critical piece of her identity. What struck Sophie the most was a letter where Thomas expressed his pain over leaving Sophie and her mother behind, detailing the turmoil that had driven him to make those decisions. "I never wanted to abandon you, dear Sophie. The circumstances were beyond my control, but my love for you has never waned. I think about you every single day." As she read these letters, betrayal surged through her veins. Why had Harold hidden these letters from her? Why did he feel the need to poison her childhood with tales of a villainous father? That night, Sophie wrestled with her thoughts and emotions, the rage toward Harold fuming like a tempest. She decided that the next day she would confront him, demanding the truth that had eluded her for years. The following evening, the air in the house was thick with unspoken words as Sophie broached the subject. "Grandpa, why did you keep these letters from me?" she demanded, her voice trembling yet resolute. Harold's face turned ashen and he stammered, "I thought I was protecting you, Sophie. Your father, he wasn't the man I wanted him to be. I didn't want you to feel the pain I felt when he left." "Protecting me? You've been keeping me imprisoned in a web of lies," Sophie shouted, tears welling in her eyes. "I deserve to know my father. I deserve to choose how I feel about him." Their heated exchange reached a boiling point, and Sophie could feel the earlier bonds of love between them begin to crack under the strain. Just when it seemed their conversation would escalate into irreparable harm, the doorbell rang, interrupting the tense atmosphere. Sophie felt a pulse of anxiety. She sensed that fate had sent someone unexpected. At the door was Lucas, Thomas's brother, his face filled with urgency. "Sophie, we need to talk," he panted, breathless from his rush. "Thomas is in trouble. He's been looking for you, and there are people after him." Sophie's heart raced at the revelation, caught in a swirl of anticipation and dread. She had long fantasized about meeting her father, but the excitement of that imagined reunion quickly spiraled into anxiety. Everything she had learned about him from Harold now felt distorted through a lens of fear. But her desire to know her father overwhelmed the uncertainties swirling in her mind. "Take me to him," she insisted, her voice steady despite the turmoil churning within her. With swirling emotions and determination driving her forward, she pushed through the door into a world tinged with possibility and danger. They arranged to meet Thomas at an old, decrepit courthouse on the outskirts of town, a place where the echoes of justice and truth lingered in the air and secrets could no longer hide in shadows. As the trio arrived, however, they found more than just her father awaiting them. Menacing figures cloaked in shadow spun around them. Whispers of debts unpaid and threats damn near tangible filled the air, and the heart of the situation became alarmingly clear. "Leave my family out of this," Thomas shouted bravely, stepping protectively in front of Sophie and Lucas. The father that Sophie had never known suddenly transformed into a fierce guardian, and it struck her to see the strength behind this man whom she had always envisioned as weak. As chaos broke out, fists flew and voices roared. Sophie felt the world spinning around her as if the ground beneath her was shifting. In the midst of the fray, Sophie felt an unmistakable urge to take charge of her own narrative. She raced through the turmoil, her heart pounding in her chest. She caught sight of a familiar face, one of the men pursuing Thomas, and recognition ignited a fire within her. This wasn't just about her father anymore, it was about her family, her identity, and her future. Caught off guard by her boldness, the attackers paused. It was a momentary hesitation, yet in that brief window, clarity washed over Sophie. Though she had felt fear all her life owing to the stories that had clouded her mind, she realized she had a voice gifted by truth. That moment lit a blazing light in her heart, emboldening not only herself but Lucas and Thomas too. They huddled together and formed a barrier against the threats, united in a newfound strength, pushing back against the shadows that had loomed over their lives for so long. In the following days, the town buzzed with rumors of a courtroom confrontation, drawing both curiosity and caution from the residents of Willowbrook. Sophie made the brave decision that perhaps would alter her life forever. She would expose her grandfather's deception and reclaim her truth. She called upon Lucas and Thomas, resolute in her newfound conviction that they could face whatever lay ahead together. As they stood in the courthouse, the air crackled with anticipation. Sophie's heart pounded, her breath hitching as she prepared to take the stand. All eyes bore down on her as she approached. "I am here to unveil a truth that has been concealed for far too long," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "My grandfather, Harold, raised me on stories riddled with lies about my father." Gasps swept through the courtroom as her words sank in. The gravity of her revelations painted a different picture for all who had once believed the narrative Harold created. "He kept letters hidden from me, letters that contained the very essence of a father's love." Raising her hands, she flourished the letters like trophies, each page standing testament to a bond long denied. These letters reveal a man who deeply regretted his choices and longed for his daughter. Instead of honoring that bond, my grandfather imprisoned my heart in a web of false narratives. All eyes shifted, resting upon Harold, who sat at the back, drenched in disbelief, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. The weight of Sophie's powerful words reverberated, and silence fell upon the room. "Though my father made mistakes," she continued, "he never stopped loving me. The person I hurt the most was him, and we all deserve a chance to heal and find each other, not live in shadows of resentment." The courtroom, once steeped in tension, began to shift. Whispers of sympathy for Thomas filled the air as a wave of realization washed over the attendees. Harold's once unassailable stories began to crumble, revealing a more complex reality. The truth that Sophie so bravely spoke resonated with the jury and those present, transforming their original disdain into understanding. While the judge listened intently to Sophie's testimony, the jury scribbled furiously, the weight of their collective judgment replaced by a blossoming empathy. In only a matter of minutes, the very fabric of what they thought they understood unraveled. An agreement began to take shape, allowing Thomas the opportunity to rebuild his relationship with Sophie and to forge new memories that had been stolen from them for far too long. The implications of Sophie's courageous stand turned the course of their family's destiny. Even as the tension hung thick in the air, a shared sense of hope punctuated the atmosphere. The hearts of the town recognized something vital, that truths, secrets long buried, had the power to bring light into even the darkest corners. With the courtroom now a crucible of revelation, Sophie absorbed the final moments as if the world around her faded into a hushed whisper. She could feel her heart echoing boldly, throbbing with empowerment as she confronted the past, emerging from the shadows into the embrace of potential and love. Outside the courthouse, the sun began to set, casting golden rays across Willowbrook. With a smile breaking across her face, Sophie turned to her father and Lucas, feeling the warmth of their shared bond and the promise that lay ahead. No longer tethered to a narrative dictated by Harold's fears, she breathed freely for the first time. "Today feels like the first day of the rest of our lives," Sophie said, the authenticity of her words echoing in the gathering twilight. She squeezed Thomas's hand, feeling his warmth infuse hope into her weary heart. "Yes, it does," Thomas replied, understanding the magnitude of their journey and all that lay ahead. "We have a path to form, and every step we take together will count." With newfound resolve, the trio walked home, emboldened by their truth. They spent evenings talking, laughing, and creating new memories, weaving together dreams that had once been frayed. Gone were the notions of deception that had clouded their family, now replaced by a tapestry of love, hope, and understanding. As the weeks progressed, a deeper bond formed between Sophie and her father. They explored nature together, visited local shops, and shared stories, both of the past and of dreams for the future. With Lucas by their side, they constructed a life filled with joy, laughter, and open communication, a stark contrast indeed to the silence that had once enveloped their lives. More than just a father-daughter relationship was reformed, the family's dynamics shifted, redefining what they each believed to be possible. Forgiveness unfolded gradually, piece by piece, a testament to the resilience of love and truth. Weeks turned into months, and their outings soon included visits to the vast meadows Sophie had explored as a child. With flowers blooming in cacophonic colors, they found serenity in nature's embrace. Each step forward echoed a collective sentiment that love could flourish anew. Yet Harold's journey was not one without its own reckoning. Alone in his thoughts, he grappled with the enormity of his past choices. Bitterness, fear, and regret circled him, begging for absolution. As his granddaughter transformed her life, a fire ignited within him, a flicker of recognition that as hard as it was, he too could seek reconciliation. In time, Harold reached out to Sophie, cautiously extending the olive branch of forgiveness. One evening, he visited with cautious grace, an awkwardness hanging in the air. "Sophie, may I come in?" he asked, uncertainty etched across his features. Sophie felt a wave of apprehension but nodded slowly. She led him to the kitchen where they shared dinner, a simple meal that felt immense. The conversation flowed tentatively at first, but as they sat across from one another, truths unfurled within the space between them. "I was wrong to keep those letters from you," Harold finally admitted, his voice shaking with vulnerability. "In my desire to protect you, I created a prison of lies that strangled your ability to love." Sophie felt a weight lifting from her heart. "It's okay, Grandpa. I struggled before, but I've learned so much. There's still time for us to fix this." With tears glistening in their eyes, they talked late into the night, unveiling wounds that remained hidden and revealing the pain wrought by fear. Day by day, they began to build a bridge, allowing love to seep in where bitterness had once driven a wedge. Under the vast night sky, each star twinkled like those who had once dreamed of a better tomorrow, a tomorrow that now came into view. The sweet harmony that wrapped around their families showcased the belief that darkness could not extinguish a flame of hope. Sophie, Thomas, Lucas, and Harold began to create memories anew, continuing their healing journey together. They established traditions that rooted them, celebrating a different kind of unity, one grounded in understanding and acceptance. As years rolled by, Willowbrook became a tapestry of love woven together by healing threads, and suddenly the scars they bore turned into symbols of their strength. They tasted the joy in simple moments, shared laughter during evening walks, and breathed deep in the comfort of one another's presence. Sophie began to embrace her identity with renewed fervor. She discovered passions that kindled her spirit, artistic pursuits that allowed her to pour her emotions onto canvas, imbuing life with colors that spoke of her journey. She turned her pain into beauty, crafting vivid landscapes that merged reality and dreams. With encouragement from Thomas, she displayed her art at local fairs and exhibitions, drawing in onlookers who found solace in her creativity. Each piece embodied the ethos of resilience and love, leaving a lasting impression in people's hearts. And so, the legacy that arose from simple conversations and brimming honesty created a sanctuary for Sophie. Her heart expanded, welcoming possibilities that felt boundless, and she often found herself reflecting on the journey that brought her to this very moment. Life, she learned, was an intricate mosaic of choices, paths taken, and the courage to forge ahead despite the storms that threatened. Every challenge had been an opportunity for growth, and every secret unveiled had allowed her to blossom into the woman she was destined to become. Years later, on a bright, shimmering afternoon, as Sophie observed her father painting a mural in the town square, each stroke reflecting their journey together, she couldn't help but feel thankful for the transformation that had transpired. Amongst the laughter and camaraderie that enveloped them, she knew that family wasn't just defined by blood, it was a bond fortified by honesty, redemption, and love. And in that beautiful realization, a newfound sense of home arose, a sanctuary built on authenticity and compassion. Willowbrook had blossomed into a place that held stories of struggles and triumphs, where dreams danced upon the winds and the delicate petals of wildflowers ushered in promise. The town became a living testament to the power of truth, to the remarkable journeys of reconciliation and healing, reminding everyone that even in the darkest moments, the light of love could lead the way to peace and understanding. Sophie's life became a canvas filled with rich colors, emotions, and connections that rippled through her family, friends, and the community, creating a harmonious melody of laughter and whispers of hope. She had, after all, woven the threads of an incredible story, one that began with shadows, transformed through courage, and ultimately radiated with the light of love.